Xiaohua looked at Yuan with a pondering gaze. Brother Yuan's cultivation base was only at the early stages of 7th-level Spirit Apprentice before consuming the Jade Frog Monster Core. Even if Brother Yuan consumes the entire Jade Frog Monster Core, he shouldn't be able to break through to 8th-level Spirit Apprentice right away and would only be halfway there. Additionally, Brother Yuan also directly absorbed the entire Monster Core and did not receive any backlash but had a breakthrough instead. Xiaohua has never seen anything like this before. Perhaps it had something to do with my physique, Yuan said. Brother Yuan's physique? It's called heaven-refining physique, he said, hoping she'd know something about it. However, Xiaohua only tilted her head. Heaven-refining physique. Xiaohua has never heard of it before. But if it has something to do with why Brother Yuan was able to consume that Jade Frog Monster Core, then we can obtain some more Monster Cores to experiment. Yuan suddenly retrieved the token given to him by the goddess during his character evaluation and showed it to her. Then do you know what this thing is? Or its purpose? Xiaohua's eyes instantly widened with shock when she saw the jade token in his hand. Ancient spirit jade, and so big, she exclaimed loudly. Where did Brother Yuan obtain this? It was given to me by some beauty. I don't know her name, though. What does it do? Yuan became curious when he saw her shocked expression, looking as though she just witnessed the heavens collapse before her. This is a spirit jade. It is somewhat similar to a monster core, but holds far more chi within. Even a pebble-sized royal spirit jade of low quality, the lowest grade, is extremely valuable in the higher heavens, since it can awaken or bestow bloodlines. Xiaohua forcefully swallowed her saliva and continued. The ancient spirit jade in Brother Yuan's grasp is 3 grades above the royal spirit jade, and is probably of high quality. Not to mention it is the size of a palm-sized rock. The presence of the ancient spirit jade was enough to make the usually calm Xiaohua tremble uncontrollably. It was just that valuable of a treasure. So I can consume this and obtain chi like monster cores, right? Yuan licked his lips when he thought about how sweet the jade frog monster core tasted. I wonder how much stronger I'll grow if I were to eat this. Xiaohua nearly received a heart attack when she heard his words and hastily grabbed his hands. You mustn't! If Brother Yuan consumes this, even if you have a unique physique, you will surely explode to death. Even a peak spirit emperor would not dare to imagine consuming it. Yuan chuckled when he saw the anxious face she made. Relax, Xiaohua. I won't consume it. Such a valuable item. How could I consume it before I find that beauty to ask her why she gave me this spirit jade? For that person to have this ancient spirit jade, she must have a shocking background. Maybe someone from the supreme heaven? Xiaohua thought to herself. Xiaohua, here. Xiaohua's soul nearly abandoned her body when Yuan suddenly threw the ancient spirit jade at her. Barely catching it, she looked at him with a baffled expression. Brother Yuan, it'd be wiser if you were to keep this ancient spirit jade for me until I become strong enough to protect it, he said. Xiaohua cannot hold something this valuable. She instantly refused while shaking her head, her hands already trembling from the invisible weight coming from the ancient spirit jade. Yuan frowned. If you don't want to hold it, then who will? I am aware of my weak existence in this vast world, so having me hold something like that will only bring endless trouble. If I could, I would just throw it away. But now that I know its value, you know what I mean, right? Xiaohua clenched her fist and nodded with a serious expression. Xiaohua vows to protect this ancient spirit jade even at the cost of her life. Wrong, Yuan said loudly. No matter how valuable that spirit jade is, it is only an object and will never be as valuable as your life. If it ever comes to losing your life or that spirit jade, then you will choose to lose the spirit jade. But No buts. This is an order. Yuan was adamant about his decision. In his eyes, there is nothing in this world that can be as valuable as Xiaohua's life. Xiaohua understands. She reluctantly nodded before storing the ancient spirit jade in her storage pouch. With the ancient spirit jade gone from her sight, the atmosphere was no longer as heavy and suffocating. I was unable to learn more about that beauty or why she'd give me such a valuable treasure. How unfortunate. Yuan sighed inwardly. Where do we go to obtain more monster cores? Yuan asked her with the steel sword still in his grasp, his blood still heated from the battle with the jade frog. Any monster with a cultivation base of 7th level spirit apprentice and above will have a chance to drop a monster core, she said. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get hunting. Xiaohua began leading Yuan around to find monsters for him to fight. With her cultivation base, it was an easy job for her to locate monsters within a 1,000-meter radius. There's a middle-level monster 200 meters to the north. Low-level are monsters between levels 1 to 3, middle-level between levels 4 to 6, and high-level are monsters between levels 7 to 9. Eh? If it isn't at least at a 7th level, what point is there for us to hunt them if they don't drop monster cores? Brother Yuan, no matter how talented an individual is or how many heavenly techniques they have, without the experience to use them properly, they will still be regarded as someone weak. I cannot argue against that. Yuan nodded. Thus, the two began slaughtering every monster that crossed paths with them. Or, more precisely, every monster that was unfortunate enough to be in that area. Player Fire Red, Player Poisoned Fiend, Player Mad Dog, and Player Get Creamed has become the first players to have cleared Burning Cave for the first time. Congratulations! An announcement hung above the clouds as Yuan elegantly danced around with the steel sword in his grasp, quickly decapitating the 4 silver wolves surrounding him. The wolf corpses plummeted to the ground, but Yuan did not stop his sword movements and continued to dance, slaying the 2 wolves that were trying to run. Xiaohua, who was watching him at a distance, clapped, like a spectator watching a street performance. Brother Yuan's growth is simply astonishing. Like a sponge absorbing water, he easily comprehends everything from his own weakness to his strength. In just a few mere hours, his swordsmanship and chi manipulation has increased by leaps and bounds. Her gaze suddenly flickered with regret. If only Brother Yuan grew up in supreme heaven instead of this lower heaven where the chi lacks in both quality and quantity. After slaying the last silver wolf, Yuan retrieved all monster cores he had collected during this grind. Only 7 had dropped after killing dozens of monsters, huh? Yuan cried inwardly at the small amount of monster core he has obtained after spending so much time and effort into slaying monsters. 7 monster cores is considered a pretty successful hunt, Xiaohua said to him upon seeing his disappointment. If used properly, 7 monster cores can last a month of cultivation. But in Brother Yuan's case, this wouldn't even last a minute for me, let alone 1 month. Yuan suddenly throws one into his mouth, and sure enough, it startled Xiaohua again. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 560,000 chi has been refined from the Silver Needle Wolf's monster core. You have absorbed enough chi for a breakthrough. You have reached 9th level Spirit Apprentice. All stats plus 500, 1,519,395 of 3,840,000. Brother Yuan, you... Xiaohua looked at Yuan like he was a ghost, her gaze filled with shock and bewilderment. Taste like candy. Yuan licked his lips and said, although it did not have as much chi as the Jade Frog's monster core, it is still very beneficial towards my cultivation. Brother Yuan, Xiaohua called him, but she didn't know what to say after that. What's wrong? He looked at her with an innocent gaze, seemingly unaware of how amazing his ability is. When a cultivator absorbs the chi within a monster core, they can only absorb a limited amount of chi from the monster core depending on the quality of the monster core. However, even a high-grade monster core will only allow one to absorb at most 50% of its total chi before the rest dissipates back into the world. This is a rule set by heaven itself and cannot be defied. But, from Brother Yuan's situation, perhaps his heaven-refining physique can ignore this rule and defy the heavens? Xiaohua trembled at the thought that Yuan could possibly have a heaven-defying physique. Defying the heavens, huh? Yuan thought of his real body in real life. If only I had such an ability in my other life, too. He sighed inwardly. Suddenly, Xiaohua turned her head and her gaze narrowed. Brother Yuan, there are people near us. People? Are they players or NPCs? He wondered. Since this will be his first encounter with other people besides Xiaohua, since he started playing this game, he wanted to see them. 3 people, 2 7th-level spirit apprentice and 1 8th-level spirit apprentice, and they are fighting a peak-level fiery lizard. I am interested, said Yuan. Let's go take a look. 3 young adults, 2 male and 1 female, stood a few meters away from a giant lizard with red scales that had black lines spread across like burn marks from a lightning strike. Their gaze flickered continuously with fear and nervousness, and underneath their clothes was a body covered in sweat. They have been fighting this fiery lizard for many minutes, yet none of them was able to break through this fiery lizard's defense. Shit! This thing's scale is as hard as steel. Senior apprentice Brother Mo, we need to leave now before we exhaust our chi. Junior apprentice Brother Wang is right. We cannot beat this beast with our current abilities. Let's leave before it's too late. The eldest among the 3 there, Mojo, bit his lips as he stared at the fiery lizard before him. He has already exhausted all his techniques on this fiery lizard, yet there were only scratches on the surface of its scales. I refuse, he suddenly shouted. Senior apprentice Brother Mo. The other 2 became anxious when they saw the stubbornness on his face. You 2 can leave, but I will stay here until either one of us dies. My life depends on this fiery lizard's monster core. Mojo bit his lips until it bled, but he continued to look at the fiery lizard with narrowed eyes filled with determination. Either I die here, or I return to the sect and die there. Since I will die either way, I might as well put everything on the line at this moment. Then die here. I only helped you out of pity, said the male before he turned to run away from the fight. This wouldn't be happening if you didn't offend senior apprentice Brother Ren. The female also abandoned the fight. Neither of those 2 was willing to risk their lives for him, despite being friends for many years. Mojo sighed at his junior apprentice sister's words. Junior apprentice sister Ling is right. But I couldn't ignore my heart no matter what, not even knowing that I will be offending a chosen by doing so. He lifted his sword once again to face the fiery lizard. Come, you trash. Xiaohua, you said that there were 3, but why is there only 1 here? Yuan pointed at Mojo, who was fighting the fiery lizard with fierce eyes and a bloodied robe. They left before we could arrive, she replied calmly. What about him? Do you think he'll win? Xiaohua shook her head. His cultivation base is almost dried up. It will only be a matter of time before he collapses due to qi deprivation. He is the only other person I have met so far besides you, Xiaohua. It'd be a shame if he were to die here. Yuan suddenly jumped into the fight with his sword raised. Bloody sword strike! The spirit sword easily penetrated the unsuspected fiery lizard's steel-like scales and directly pierced its heart, instantly killing it with 1 strike. Are you okay? Yuan looked at the dazed Mojo, who was staring at him like a dumb chicken, his mouth wide open and all. This... Mojo stuttered like a baby who just started speaking. He has never seen anyone penetrate the scales of a fiery lizard known for its nearly impenetrable defense with a single sword strike, let alone with such ease. Yuan suddenly extended his hand for Mojo, who had fallen to the ground from shock. So, why did you continue to fight that thing despite the obvious conclusion? He asked as he pulled Mojo off the ground. Mojo's expression stiffened upon hearing his question. I will die if I fail to obtain a fiery lizard monster core, so I might as well die trying. He sighed in a sorrowful tone. Why would you die if you cannot obtain one? Yuan became interested in his situation. Taking another deep sigh, Mojo said, because I had offended a chosen from my sect. Chosen? What's that? Mojo looked at him with a weird expression. How can anyone not know what a chosen means? A chosen is someone who is favored by the mighty heaven. They are all born with great talents and are respected by everyone. Favored by the heavens, huh? Yuan nodded. So, you mean to tell me that you are going to die because you had offended this one guy? What did you do, kill his parents in front of him? Mojo shook his head violently at his words. No way. All I did was court senior apprentice sister Xing, but because senior apprentice brother Ren also fancies her, my actions angered him. Are they dating? No. Yeah. Yuan face-palmed, making a loud slapping sound. He wants to kill you because you went ahead and confessed your love to this Xing girl? What kind of unreasonable man is this senior apprentice brother Ren of yours? Mojo became dumbfounded by his words. But this type of situation happens all the time, he thought to himself. Yuan glanced at the fiery lizard corpse. You need that, right? He asked while pointing. Yes. Take it. Eh? Mojo looked at him with a face full of surprise. This fiery lizard monster core is no doubt a valuable treasure that even the sect elders would covet, yet this young man was willing to give it to him, who he just met, just like that. Really, Mojo mumbled in a doubtful tone. But it was you who killed it. Then I'll just take it for myself. Yuan turned to walk towards the corpse. Seeing his actions, Mojo quickly panicked. Wait! I want— No, please let me have it. I, Mojo of the Flying Sword Sect, will be forever in your debt. Brother Yuan is really kind. If it were anybody else, they would have definitely kept it for themselves. Xiaohua thought to herself as she watched Mojo fall to his knees to kowtow to Yuan as a way to show his gratitude. If there is anything this savior needs from this Mojo, he will do it without fail, Mojo said loudly with tears falling off the corner of his eyes. Having never been in such a situation, Yuan didn't know how to react to Mojo's actions. No need to be so humble. If I can exchange a mere monster core for someone's life, of course I will do it without hesitation, he said. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mojo stayed kowtowing. Not only did you already save me once from the fiery lizard, you are also giving me this fiery lizard monster core. In such a short time, you have already saved my life twice. Please, accept this as my gratitude. It is awkward seeing a grown man such as yourself in this position while crying. Hurry and stand up already. It took a moment, but Mojo eventually calmed down. I haven't gotten your name yet. You can call me Yuan. Then, fellow Taoist Yuan, once again, I am Mojo, an outer disciple of the Flying Sword Sect. Mojo stretched his hands for a handshake. Flying Sword Sect? What's a sect, again? Yuan asked, forgetting that he'd already heard of such a word when he first arrived in this world. Mojo instantly became dazed at his question. Brother Yuan, a sect is an organization dedicated to the practices of cultivation, where people go to study cultivation. Xiaohua explained to him. So in other words, a school for cultivators? Yuan looked at Mojo, and a profound light flashed in his eyes. Hey, Mojo, Can you give me a tour around your flying sword sect? I have never been to a sect before, you see." Mojo trembled, waking up from his daze. "So you really are a rogue cultivator," he mumbled in a voice of disbelief. "Rogue cultivator?" Yuan looked at Xiaohua with a question mark floating on the top of his head. "They are independent cultivators that do not belong to any sect." "Oh, I understand. But why do you look so shocked?" He turned to look at Mojo. "I can tell that Taoist Yuan is a 9th-level spirit apprentice, but he was able to slay that fiery lizard that even 3rd-level spirit warriors would have trouble, and you even killed it with such ease." What he is trying to say is Brother Yuan, who does not have the support of sects, shouldn't be this powerful, Xiaohua intervened. She looked at the dumbfounded Mojo and said, "Brother Yuan is special. Don't compare him with these geniuses. Even these so-called chosen are nothing in front of Brother Yuan." "Ah, you are making me blush with such a bashful statement." Yuan sighed in a low voice, his face slightly red. "No, as arrogant as it may have sounded, I believe it. That Taoist Yuan is no doubt a genius," Mojo said with a serious expression. "As for visiting my flying sword sect, I will have to get permission from my sect elder before I can say for sure." "Really? Then what are we waiting for?" Yuan said cheerfully. He didn't expect that he'd have the chance to go to school in a video game, something he did not have the luxury of doing in the real world due to the limitations on his body. "Ah, give me a second to retrieve the monster core," Mojo said hastily, nearly forgetting about it. "Bloody sword strike!" A red arc of light swept through the forest and directly beheaded the 3 meters tall ape without alerting it. "Your comprehension with Bloody Sword Strike has reached a new level. Bloody Sword Strike." Mastery Level 1 increased to Level 2. Bloody Sword Strike rank, Earth Mastery Level 2. Description: consumes 90,000 Qi. Must wield a sword to activate. A technique from the Blood Sect. When Yuan noticed how the Qi consumption had increased 100 folds with a single mastery level increase, his jaw dropped from shock. Wouldn't his heaven-splitting sword strike require 1 million Qi to activate at mastery level 2 at this rate? Fellow Taoist Yuan is really incomprehensible. Mojo trembled in shock as he watched Yuan slay high-level monsters with ease, and all in a single strike. Even that high-level spirit apprentice bull ape was slain in a single strike. Ever since they met and decided to visit the Flying Sword Sect, Yuan would hunt down every monster in their path, collecting a few more monster cores. 11 so far, huh? Yuan counted the number of monster cores he had obtained, and the bundle of glistening monster cores in Yuan's grasp dumbfounded Mojo to the core, who thought he was in an auction house. "So many monster cores," Mojo exclaimed loudly. "Monster cores are all valuable resources that greatly assist cultivators with their cultivation, and they are greatly desired by cultivators from all levels. And because they can only be acquired through high-level monsters, they are considered rare and hard to obtain. But now, in front of his eyes, there are a dozen of them all gathered on one man's palm. You consider this many, it won't even fill the gap between my teeth if I eat them all." Yuan sighed. "What?" Mojo couldn't comprehend the meaning behind his words, but he had a premonition that he would regret it if he knew, so he decided to ignore it. "We have been running into a lot of high-level monsters, haven't we? That was already the 6th one." Mojo pondered as another high-level monster falls to the ground with its head detached from its neck. "You really like beheading things. It's efficient and easy, after all." Yuan smiled casually. "Shh, no monster core from this one." "Easy, huh?" Mojo inwardly compared Yuan with the chosen in his sect. Would they be able to say such bold words so casually? Would they also be able to behead high-level monsters with such ease? Most likely not. A thought suddenly appeared in Mojo's head. Since he is a rogue cultivator, there is a chance I can rope him into joining our Flying Sword Sect. If the Flying Sword Sect accepted a genius like him into their ranks, they will surely be overjoyed. Hell, they may even consider him a candidate as a future sect leader. Say, Taoist Yuan, have you ever considered joining a sect? He decided to ask him. Yuan thought about it for a moment and shook his head. I did not know of the existence of these so-called sects until today, so no, I have never thought about it. Then, would you be interested in joining my Flying Sword Sect? I am sure the sect will welcome you with wide arms. While Yuan pondered, Xiaohua decided to open her mouth and speak. Brother Yuan, there is no need for you to join a sect. It will only hinder your growth. Xiaohua believes that Brother Yuan will grow stronger much faster when together with Xiaohua as a rogue cultivator. Mojo's mouth dropped when he heard Xiaohua's words. Because she has been silent, he didn't really pay much attention to her. He wondered about their relationship. If I ever join a sect, it'd only be for fun, said Yuan. However, it is still too early for me to join any sect, so I will have to refuse that offer for now. Is that so? While Mojo was dispirited due to Yuan refusing his offer, he understood that there was still hope for him to join the Flying Sword Sect in the future. Then, if you ever feel like joining a sect, please come to my Flying Sword Sect. I'll keep that in mind. After walking for a few more hours, the group finally arrived at a vast valley surrounded by high mountains. This is the Flying Sword Sect? Yuan was mesmerized by the scene of the 1,000 swords hovering in the air above the valley, looking as though there was a roof made of swords covering the place. That's the 1,000 Swords formation. It is a heaven-ranked battle formation. If activated, they will all attack at once, like a rain of arrows, though it has been over 100 years since it was last activated. Mojo wanted to leave a deep impression on Yuan with the sect's power, hoping it would increase the chances of him join the sect. Mojo's words and the magnificent scene indeed left a deep impression within Yuan, who has never seen anything like this before. As for Xiaohua, she only glanced at it for a second before looking away. Please wait here for a moment while I go ask for permission to give you a tour around as a guest. Yuan nodded and waited outside for him. A genius rogue cultivator, you say? An old man sat in his exquisite wooden chair, his gaze as the young man standing before him. That's right, Elder Zhang. He managed to slay a high-level fiery lizard with a single sword strike, even piercing its steel-like scales known for its impenetrable defense. Mojo shared his experience with Yuan to the old man before him. The old man was Elder Zhang, a sect elder of the Flying Sword Sect, who was also in charge of the administration for the sect. If this young man is really as good as you praised him to be, then I'd like to meet him myself. Elder Zhang stood up and walked towards the door. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Yes. Mojo led Elder Zhang outside the sect, where Yuan and Xiaohua waited patiently. Fellow Taoist Yuan, thank you for waiting. 9th level spirit apprentice. How old are you, young man? Elder Zhang could tell Yuan's cultivation base with a single glance. You seem to be around Mojo's age. Not bad for a rogue cultivator who cultivated without any proper guidance. He nodded with approval. You are... This is Elder Zhang. He is in charge of the sect's administrations for the outer court disciples. Mojo introduced Elder Zhang to Yuan. I see. Nice to meet you, Elder Zhang. Elder Zhang gently brushed his white beard and said, I will get straight to the point. Do you want to join my Flying Sword Sect as a disciple? The sect provides countless benefits and resources to its disciples to help them grow. If you join, then your cultivation base will definitely rise faster than before. Perhaps you may even qualify to become an inner court disciple one day. Inner court disciple? Yuan wondered. if inner court disciples meant being something like an upperclassman. You! Elder Zhang frowned and looked at Zhou. Elder Jiang, you see, Taoist Yuan has actually never been aware of the existence of sects until today, hence why he wanted to visit our flying sword sect. Zhou explained to him with a bitter smile. What? How is that even possible? Elder Zhang doubted his words, but even an idiot could come up with a better excuse. Elder Zhang looked at Yuan again, and he sighed. Whatever. I do not care about your circumstances. Well, what is your answer? I will accept you as an outer court disciple right this moment, if you so wish. Zhou saw the chance and urged Yuan. Taoist Yuan, you are really lucky. Under normal circumstances, one would have to pass the entrance exam before they get admitted into the sect as a disciple. However, Elder Zhang here has the authority to accept you into the sect without any of that hassle. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance that anyone would be willing to die for, he said with excitement. Yuan turned silent for a moment. However, despite the enticing offer, Yuan still shook his head. Although I appreciate the gracious offer, I will have to decline. Why? Zhou exclaimed. How could anybody let such a chance go to waste? This could be his ticket to becoming an inner court disciple of a great sect, such as the Flying Sword Sect, a chance every outer court disciple like Zhou would die for. Like I have already said, I am not yet ready to join any factions. I am currently waiting for someone, and until she arrives, I will not make any big decisions, said Yuan. Xiaohua glanced at Yuan when he mentioned that he was waiting for someone. Who could this person be? Very well, Elder Zhang said with his eyes closed. If that is your decision, then so be it. However, do not come back one day and ask for my generosity again, as you have already lost it once. Zhou sighed. All of his efforts were wasted in such a short amount of time. Perhaps the reason Elder Zhang did not put any real effort into pursuing Yuan was that he still doesn't fully trust his words, that Yuan was a prodigy that even inner court disciples may not be able to match. About the tour, am I still allowed to see your sect? Yuan asked with a sly expression. He still wanted to see the inside even after all that he's said. Zhou looked at Elder Zhang with the corner of his eyes, waiting for his answer. Elder Zhang coldly snorted and said, "Let him see what he's missed out." He walked away afterward. Yuan was speechless. Refusing Elder Zhang's offer must have offended him. Zhou sighed again and said with an apologetic expression, "Don't worry about it too much, Taoist Yuan. It was my fault to begin with. If I hadn't spoken so highly of you in front of Elder Jiang with the intention of recruiting you, then this would have never have happened." Yuan shook it off and said, "I don't mind it. He's just a grumpy old man after all." Grumpy old man. Taoist. Yuan, please don't ever let him hear you say that in front of him, or else he will definitely kill you. Zhou, with a terrified expression, turned to see whether or not Elder Jiang had heard Yuan. When he couldn't see Elder Jiang's figure, Zhou sighed in relief. Forget about him, and let's hurry and go inside. I have been itching to see the inside since the sight of the 1,000 sword formations, Yuan said in an urging tone. Zhou smiled bitterly and said, "All right, follow me." He turned around and led the two inside, where disciples could be seen bustling around. Wow, they all carry swords with them. Yuan's eyes flickered with excitement. He couldn't be more excited at this moment. In his eyes, this place was just begging for him to explore. That building over there is the cafeteria for outer court disciples like me. The inner court disciples eat at a separate building, Zhou explained as he guided Yuan around the Flying Sword Sect. Yuan nodded his head in excitement. Do you see that open area over there? That is where disciples go for lectures from sect elders once a week. That tall building is where disciples train to sharpen their sword techniques, said Mojo as he pointed to the pagoda that was in the distance. What a unique shape for a building. Yuan silently admired the elegant tower. Do you think I can go inside for a closer look? He then asked Mojo, who quickly shook his head in an apologetic manner. I'm sorry, Taoist Yuan, but visitors are not allowed inside any building with a ceiling. Che, what a stinky place. How will you attract new disciples if you block off everything? Yuan shook his head in pity. Mojo didn't know how to refute his ignorant statement and could only smile awkwardly. Because normally, one wouldn't tour around a sect before deciding whether they want to join or not. Forget it, Yuan suddenly said. Let's continue with the tour. Mojo heaved a sigh of relief when Yuan didn't continue the topic. Okay, then let me show you what disciples of the Flying Sword sect deem as the most important thing in this sect. Oh! Hearing his words, Yuan instantly became curious about this place. After walking for a few minutes, they stopped in front of 3 tall stone tablets sitting beside each other. These 3 stone tablets were perfectly rectangular and had dozens of names engraved on it, resembling a memorial for the dead. However, unlike the other 2, the middle stone tablet only had a few names on it, and they were much bigger and sharper than the rest. What's this? A memorial for the dead? Yuan opened his mouth to ask without thinking. Wha? Mojo looked at him with a scared look. He then looked around to see if anybody was there to hear his words. After seeing that the place was empty, Mojo heaved another sigh of relief. Taoist Yuan, even though I am aware of your ignorance about sex, what you just said had greatly offended not only me, but also every disciple in this sect. What? Yuan looked at him with a baffled expression. This is not a memorial for the dead, but a ranking for the entire sect. Every name on these 3 tablets represents a genius within the sect, and they are all respected by the thousands of disciples in this sect. If others besides me had heard your words, they would have jumped at you with their swords raised, as that was extremely disrespectful to the individuals that have poured their sweat and blood just to be on that ranking. Is that right? I had no idea, but I will still apologize for my rude remarks. Sorry, Yuan said in an apologetic tone. Seeing his sincere apology, Mojo nodded with an approving smile. It's fine. I know you didn't mean it. He then turned to the 3 stone tablets again and said, every stone tablet except the middle one holds 45 names, with the middle having only 10, adding up to a total of 100 names. These 100 names are the names of the strongest disciples within the Flying Sword sect, not including the sect elders and the sect leader, and every single one of them receives the sect's full backing, allowing them to enjoy almost an unlimited amount of resources provided by the sect. And everybody in the middle stone tablets is given the title Core Disciple. Mojo's eyes sparkled with admiration as he stared at the 3 stone tablets, especially when his gaze met with the middle one, seemingly mesmerized. Every disciple in this sect, including me, desires to have our own names engraved on the stone tablet. Suddenly, as Mojo ended his words, the last name on the 3rd stone tablet disappeared, and a few seconds later, another name engraved itself on the very same spot. When Mojo saw this, his eyes flickered with excitement. Look, someone just replaced the 100th name. Eh? How did the names on the tablet change itself? Aren't they engraved into it? Yuan was more curious about the phenomenon than the event itself. After staring at the stone tablet for a few moments, Yuan suddenly noticed the name Ren Fushan. He pointed to the 1st stone tablet and asked Mojo in a curious tone, Hey, that Ren Fushan, is he the same as the Ren that you had offended? When Yuan mentioned Ren Fushan, Mojo's complexion noticeably paled. He then nodded in a dispirited motion, confirming Yuan's curiosity. His name is ranked 14th. He's the 14th strongest disciple in this place. Mojo nodded again, but even slower this time. What about the girl you were courting? Is she also on the ranking? Hearing his question, Mojo silently pointed to the last name engraved on the middle stone tablet. Xing Ai-ying, ranked 10th. Yuan then turned to look at Mojo with a surprised look. You actually courted someone that has her name on the ranking. The middle one, no less. How bold and aspiring. Mojo could only smile bitterly at Yuan's words that were seemingly filled with admiration and praise. Anyway, this is pretty much all there is to see, for guests like you at least, Mojo said. Now I have to give this fiery lizard monster core to senior apprentice Brother Ren. Mojo sighed in a dejected manner. Do you really have to give it to him? You didn't do anything wrong, so there's no reason for you to listen to his nonsense, said Yuan. Mojo shook his head and said, You don't understand, Taoist Yuan. This is a world where the strong makes the rules and the weak obey their rules, even if such rules are unreasonable and full of nonsense. And I'm telling you that only an idiot would follow such rules, Yuan shrugged. You are the one who doesn't understand here. An idiot? Mojo looked at him, who'd unknowingly called everybody in this world an idiot, with a weird expression on his face. How about I come with you to meet this Ren guy? Yuan suddenly said, dumbfounding him. It's fine, Mojo said a moment later with a bitter smile. This is my own problem. I cannot drag you into it, especially not after all that you've done for me already. Yuan turned silent and looked at him with a calm expression. Is that so? Then. Suddenly, a loud voice resounded from the distance. Hey, isn't that the kid who tried to court senior apprentice Sister Xing and ended up offending you? Both Yuan and Mojo turned to look in the direction of the voice, and Mojo's face paled the instant he saw the two handsome young men in the distance looking at him. Senior apprentice Brother Ren! Senior apprentice Brother Zhen! When Yuan saw how Mojo's legs were shaking like jello, he knew just how fearful he was towards these two individuals. Mojo! You bastard! How dare you make me walk to your living quarters to look for you? The handsome young man on the right approached Mojo with an angry expression, his hands grasped tightly into fists. Where have you been hiding? Didn't I say that today was the last day for you to bring me a monster core from a fiery lizard, or else? I have it! I have a fiery lizard monster core with me. Here you go. Mojo pulled out a small red crystal from his robe pockets and showed it to Ren Fushin. That brat really managed to obtain a fiery lizard monster core. Ren Fushin's eyes widened upon seeing the crystal. He did not think that someone as weak as Mojo would have the ability to slay a powerful beast like the fiery lizard, yet there was its monster core in his grasp. How did you get it? Don't tell me you bought it. It doesn't matter how I obtained it. I have gotten what you asked, so leave me alone from now on. Ha 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 ha. Hearing his words, Ren Fushin burst out laughing. You really are an idiot. You really think that I'd leave you alone just because you somehow managed to obtain the monster core? That was only an excuse for me to beat you up. What? At this point, Mojo's heart was filled with bitterness. You promised that you'd forget about me courting senior apprentice Sister Xing if I give you the fiery lizard monster core. Of course, I will honor my words and forget about your disgraceful act of courting senior apprentice Sister Xing. However, after you give me the fiery lizard, it will no longer be about that. How dare a lowly trash such as yourself have feelings for senior apprentice Sister Xing? Just your feelings are enough for you to get beaten. Mojo trembled uncontrollably upon hearing those words. Just his love for his senior apprentice Sister Xing is enough to get beaten? Where is the justice in that? But alas, he was weak, and Ren Fushin was a chosen. Their status in this world was simply too far apart. Wow, what a statement! Yuan suddenly said loudly, causing Mojo's body to mysteriously stop trembling. Beating someone up just because they love the same person as you? What a messed up personality you have there. Yuan laughed out loud, almost like he was watching a funny movie. And who the fuck are you? You are clearly not a disciple of this sect, so how did you get in here? Ren Fushan finally noticed Yuan and Xiaohua standing by the side. Who am I? I am the person who gave him that fiery lizard monster core, said Yuan, his expression calm. Taoist Yuan. Mojo looked at him with wide eyes. Huh? So you are the one... Ren Fushan looked at Yuan with narrowed eyes. Why did you give him something as precious as the fiery lizard monster core? What did he offer in return? He asked. He didn't give me anything, nor do I want anything from him. I gave him it simply because I felt like it, Yuan casually replied. Although he didn't know who Yuan was, Ren Fushan was wary of him. After all, what kind of normal individual would give away something as valuable as a fiery lizard monster core for free? And what do you want? I'd appreciate it if you stopped bullying him, said Yuan with a smile. And what if I said no? While Ren Fushan didn't want to offend someone as mysterious as him, he wasn't afraid of him. Not only is he a chosen, but they are still inside the Flying Sword Sect, where he has protection in every direction. Of course you will refuse. Yuan turned to look at Mojo and said, I have already saved his life once. It won't be weird if I do it again, right? You? Ren Fushan instantly frowned at his words. Taoist Yuan. As for Mojo, he looked at Yuan with tears in his eyes, his gaze filled with admiration, and his heart filled with gratitude. I do not know which hole you crawled from, but consider this is your last warning, Ren Fushan said as he unsheathed the sword by his side, causing the aura around him to change. Yuan looked at Ren Fushan with a smile. Instead of worrying that he might have to fight another human for the first time, he actually found this situation to be pretty entertaining. You want to fight? Let's go. I have been wanting to test my sword on something that's not monster for once. Yuan also retrieved his sword. When Ren Fushan saw Yuan's sword that was emitting a powerful and sharp aura, his eyes widened with shock. A spirit-grade sword, and it's even peak quality. He actually has a peak quality spiritual weapon. Any weapons with a grade are considered precious treasures, as they are always many times stronger than normal weapons, especially weapons with higher quality. And although Yuan's sword is only at the lowest grade, spirit grade, a peak quality weapon is something that even someone like Ren Fushan, who is ranked 14th overall in this entire sect, does not have. Ren Fushan frowned deeply after realizing that Yuan had a peak quality weapon, whilst he only held a medium quality weapon. His attitude also changed, and he no longer looked at this situation as calmly as before. After all, he is already at a disadvantage before the fight even started. Compared to Yuan's peak quality weapon, his medium-grade quality is akin to a wooden stick. What are you standing there for? If you don't want to fight, then just say so, Yuan said to him when he doesn't move even after many moments, his voice with a hint of provocation. No. Although he has a superior weapon, I have the advantage in terms of cultivation base. He's only a 9th-level spirit apprentice, whilst I am a 5th-level spirit warrior. There's no way I could lose even if he has a peak-quality weapon. Ren Fushan encouraged himself with such logic. Even if Yuan has a peak-quality weapon, if he does not have the cultivation base to use its full potential, it will actually burden him instead. If you hand over that weapon as an apology, then I don't mind forgiving you for everything you've done up to this point, and I will even stop bothering Mojo. How does that sound? Before Yuan could even open his mouth to speak, Xiaohua opened her mouth for the first time. Brother Yuan, this will be good practice for you. Although you have familiarized yourself with beasts, you have yet to fight another human, and to be honest, you will most likely be fighting more humans than beasts in the future." Yuan nodded and raised his sword to stand in an offensive stance. He had no intention of avoiding this fight, as he already considered this as an in-game event. "Good! Then I shall take it off your dead body!" Ren Fuchen roared as he charged towards Yuan with the sword in his grasp raised high in the air. "Triple sword strike!" Ren Fuchen connected 3 attacks together in the blink of an eye, making it seem as though he attacked 3 times with a single movement. Yuan's eyes widened at his approach, but he was not shocked. Instead, he was watching Ren Fuchen's attack closely, almost as if he was analyzing it. In the next instant, Yuan raised his sword, blocking all 3 strikes with a single move. "What?" Ren Fuchen exclaimed in surprise after Yuan perfectly blocked his attack. However, despite blocking it perfectly, Yuan was pushed back slightly from the power created by someone 5 whole levels above him. "Amazing!" Yuan looked at his trembling hands with a wide smile on his face. "This tingly and numbing sensation? What a great feeling!" Yuan, whose real body cannot feel anything, was excited to experience such a feeling for the first time, and it made him feel alive. "Is he crazy?" Ren Fuchen looked at Yuan's smiling face and thought to himself, "Come, let's fight even more." It was Yuan's turn to be aggressive this time. Could Brother Yuan be a battle maniac? Xiaohua wondered to herself. Bloody sword strike! The blade of the sword suddenly glowed red, and killing intent filled the place. Ren Fuchen nearly crapped his pants when he realized that Yuan had just used an Earth-grade sword technique. "Impossible! You are clearly only a spirit apprentice. How could you possibly use an Earth-grade sword technique?" He gasped in shock. Ren Fuchen hastily raised his sword to block the incoming attack. Bang! The moment their swords collided, Ren Fuchen felt as though he was clashing against a mountain, and his knees were forced to the ground by the tyrannical pressure pressing down on him. The next instant, Ren Fuchen noticed cracks appearing across his sword. "Not good. At this rate, he will break my weapon. Help me!" He suddenly called out to his fellow disciple that had been on standby. In the next moment, the disciple retrieved his sword and approached them at high speed. "Taoist Yuan! Watch out!" Mojo couldn't react in time to block the disciple and yelled out loud to warn Yuan of the incoming danger. However, Yuan did not even turn to look at the disciple and swung his sword, throwing Ren Fuchen many meters into the distance. Once Ren Fuchen was out of the picture, Yuan turned to face the second disciple. "Bloody sword strike!" He activated the same skill and quickly swung his sword, sending an arc of light towards the surprised disciple. The disciple, who was not the least prepared for such a strike, could only watch as the arc speed towards his direction and separate one of his limbs. "Ah! My arm! My arm!" The disciple dropped on the floor and screamed in agony while clutching the right side of his body. Oops. Yuan had acted purely on instinct and did not really mean to cut off the disciple's arm, even feeling bad for him afterward. Ha! He should be fine, right? This is just his reaction as an NPC, right? His arm will regrow as if nothing happened after I leave, right? Yuan tried to convince himself so that he'd feel less guilty for cutting the disciple's arm. "Yo, you bastard! I will fucking kill you!" Ren Fuchen roared in anger, but he was secretly fearful of Yuan's tyrannical strength. Even now, his arms are shaking from Yuan's strike. "It's not my fault he jumped into our fight." Yuan directed the blame towards the disciple, which caused the disciple to cough up a mouthful of blood upon hearing his words. "Ah! Help me! I'm bleeding to death!" The disciple continued to yell at the top of his lungs, but the nearby disciples did not assist him, as they did not want to be caught up in their ruckus. Eventually, the disciple's voice reached Elder Jiang's ears, who was sipping tea not too far from the place. Throwing his tea down, Elder Jiang leaped into the air and approached the noise. The way he jumped from rooftops to rooftops made it seem as though he could control the gravity around him, allowing him to be weightless. When he arrived, Elder Jiang's eyes widened with shock at the puzzling situation. He then quickly reacted by stopping the blood from spurting out of the disciple's arm. Once he fixed the problem by placing some sort of seal around the disciple's arm, Elder Jiang wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned to face Zhou. "What the hell is going on here, Zhou?" He directed his anger towards Zhou, who was trying his best not to piss his pants from listening to the disciples' agonizing screams. They confronted us with hostility, and in order to protect me, Taoist Yuan sparred with Senior Apprentice Brother Ren. When Senior Apprentice Brother was on the verge of losing, Senior Apprentice Brother Huang tried to backstab Taoist Yuan, which resulted in this situation. Taoist Yuan? That child? Elder Jiang turned to look at Yuan, who was trying to hide the bloody sword in his hand behind his back while awkwardly smiling at him. This child, who is only a 9th-level spirit apprentice, defeated not only Huang Ding, but also Ren Fuchen, one of the top inner court disciples? Elder Jiang couldn't believe his ears. Although cultivators achieving victory against people with a higher cultivation base is not that uncommon, such a large skip in level is unheard of. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong here right now. But is this how you repay my generosity for letting you inside as a guest? I don't care what background you came from. Prepare to face the consequences for attacking a disciple of the Flying Sword Sect. Elder Jiang began approaching Yuan, who felt something amiss here. They are clearly the ones in the wrong for confronting him, and he even defended one of their disciples from getting bullied, yet he's going to be punished. Sure, he did slice that disciple's arm off, but that was an accident that could have been prevented if he didn't jump in the middle of their match. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong. Although I do not belong here, don't I have the right to be safe as a guest in your house? One of your students provoked me into fighting him, but you don't care about that. Your own students are being bullied by their fellow students in plain sight, yet nobody even bothered to prevent it. If this is how you act as a teacher of this place, then I don't think you should be a teacher. Yuan said what was on his mind without saving any face for Elder Jiang. How dare you? Who are you to lecture me? Elder Jiang's eyes turned red from anger, clearly provoked by Yuan's words. Seeing Elder Jiang emit faint killing intent, Xiao Hua also silently prepared herself. If Elder Jiang so much as tries to hurt Yuan, she will not hesitate to kill him. Just as Elder Jiang prepared himself to punish Yuan for speaking out of line, a sudden voice resounded in his ears. Wait. Elder Jiang instantly halted his movements and turned to look behind him. When he saw that it was a middle-aged man with sharp features and a dominating presence standing behind him, his eyes widened with shock. Sect leader! Not only Elder Jiang, but everybody there exclaimed loudly. Step back, Elder Jiang. I will personally take care of this. What? Elder Jiang was shocked, speechless, but he didn't dare refuse and silently nodded. Once Elder Jiang stepped back, the sect leader stepped forward. He then looked at Ren Fuchen and Huang Ding and spoke, I have been watching since the beginning. His words dumbfounded the two, causing them to tremble in fear. How pathetic. Not only did you lose a 2-on-1, but you also had the audacity to attempt a backstab. Where did you learn to fight like cowards? I do not recall teaching this type of swordsmanship in my sect. I will surely discipline both of you afterward. Ren Fuchen's expression paled upon hearing the sect leader's words. Knowing his character, they will surely be experiencing hell after this. As for Huang Ding, he directly fell unconscious after hearing the sect leader's words. What is your response? The sect leader suddenly roared. Yes, sect leader, Ren Fuchen replied in a cracked voice. Humph. The sect leader coldly snorted. He then turned to look at Yuan. That technique you used just now, you must be from the blood sect. The blood sect! That evil place! Elder Zhang cried inwardly. He didn't expect someone innocent looking like Yuan to be a part of that vile place. If he'd known, he would have never allowed him inside this place. I do not want any trouble with you or your place, so please just leave us alone. As for this incident, it was our fault, so you don't have to worry about anything. Everybody there was speechless, watching their domineering sect leader act so humble before someone way younger. Not many of them even have heard of this blood sect, so they were also puzzled. Yuan was also speechless. He didn't expect the situation to make such a turn and was at a loss of what to do. After standing there and pondering for a moment, Yuan decided that it would be better for him and Zhou to just acknowledge being a disciple from the blood sect. That's right. I am indeed from the blood sect, he said with a confident voice. And I don't mind pretending what happened today did not occur. But you have to promise me that my friend, Zhou, will no longer be bullied by his fellow disciples. Taoist, Yuan? Zhou couldn't believe his ears and began crying. Why would Yuan go this far for him when he didn't do anything to really deserve this treatment? Zhou, huh? The sect leader turned to look at Zhou for a moment before saying, You will be my disciple starting today. Anyone who dares to touch you will have to answer me. What? When the sect leader made his announcement, everybody there gasped in shock, Zhou included. Greet your new master, the sect leader continued. Zhou immediately kowtowed on the ground and bowed to him. This disciple greets master. Good. Starting today, you will be training under me. Yes, Zhou replied with enthusiasm in his voice. Although Yuan did not expect such an outcome yet again, he was more than satisfied. Then I will be taking my leave, he said. The sect leader nodded and looked at Zhou again. Go guide our guest to the exit. Yes, master. Thus, Zhou brought Yuan and Xiaohua away from the crowd. Once they were gone, Sect Elder Jiang spoke. Sect leader, making Zhou your disciple is a little bit. The sect leader coldly snorted. If you hadn't noticed by now, the sword technique used by that child is one of the blood sect's most powerful technique. What? Does this mean that child is definitely not just your average disciple from the blood sect, judging from his prowess and ability to fight those many realms above himself? I won't be surprised if his master is the blood sect's master himself, Lord Blood. Lord Blood! Elder Zhang trembled in fear just by hearing his name. And if someone like him calls Zhou his friend, then there's a high possibility that the blood sect will help us if we are ever in danger because of their relationship. If that's the case, then I won't hesitate to make him my disciple, even if it will make many disciples unhappy. Elder Jiang stared at him with a gaze filled with admiration. To think that the sect leader would be thinking so far ahead just to keep his sect safe. It's no wonder why he's the sect leader. Sect leader is sharp and wise to think I doubted your decision even for a moment. Please forgive me. If you want to be forgiven, then take care of the rest of this mess, the sect leader said before walking away. The news of Zhou, a mere outer court disciple, suddenly becoming the sect leader's disciple, came out of the blue and shocked every disciple within the Flying Sword sect, especially those already at the top. What? How could a nobody like Zhou be chosen as the sect leader's disciple when the rest of us have been working our asses off just for that spot? The heavens are unjust. This world is unfair. No doubt many people began to despise Zhou because of his luck and bullshit. But alas, with the sect leader behind his back, who would dare to touch him now? Outside the Flying Sword sect, Zhou dropped to his knees and kowtowed to Yuan, who was slightly taken back by his behavior. What are you doing? Yuan tried to lift him off the floor. Taoist, no, Brother Yuan. Everything you have done for me, I do not know if I will ever be able to repay you, but I will do my best as the sect leader's disciple and will one day return this debt." Yuan smiled and casually waved his hands. "Don't worry about it. Like I'd already said many times, I am not doing this because I want any reward. No, this is not a reward. I am doing this because I want to, just like you," he quickly responded. Yuan could tell that Mojo will not change his mind no matter what he says at this point, so he only shook his head inwardly and accepted the outcome. "Fine, do whatever you want." "I will. And good luck with that girl you fancy. I'm rooting for you." "Right." Mojo began blushing. "Then I'll be leaving. I have already caused too much trouble in your place." Yuan began walking away. "Take care, Brother Yuan." Mojo waved at him from the Flying Sword Sect. A few moments later, after Yuan left the Flying Sword Sect, messages appeared before his eyes. "Congratulations. You have unlocked the bond system. Mojo has been added to your bond. Mojo's bond level has increased to acquaintance. Mojo's bond level has increased to friend. Mojo's bond level has increased to brotherhood. Congratulations, your bond level with Mojo has reached brotherhood. You have gained the following effect from Mojo's bond level. Mojo's gratitude. Mojo's gratitude increases sword mastery by 25% and sword damage by 10%. Sword mastery increases your control when wielding swords. Sword damage increases your damage when wielding swords. Congratulations, you have unlocked associations. Flying Sword Sect has been added to your associations. Because of the drama you've caused there, your relationship with Flying Sword Sect has decreased drastically. Because of your bond level with Mojo, prime disciple of Flying Sword Sect, your relationship with Flying Sword Sect has increased greatly. Congratulations, you have unlocked fame. Due to your actions at Flying Sword Sect, your fame has increased by 10. Fame increases as you make a name for yourself. Yuan nearly received a headache from the number of notifications being spammed. "Where should we go now?" Yuan asked Xiaohua as they left the area. Xiaohua pondered as their figures entered the forest. As they traveled further away from the Flying Sword Sect, Xiaohua thought to herself, "It's only been a few days since Brother Yuan became a cultivator, yet he is already powerful enough to hold his own against spirit warriors, even though he's only a 9th-level spirit apprentice. This kind of growth is unheard of and is terrifying, to say the least. His experience with the sword is also increasing at a frightening rate, almost like he's the reincarnation of a sword emperor." Besides wandering around aimlessly for valuable resources and collecting monster cores, there is really nothing else to do. Additionally, because Brother Yuan is already a 9th-level spirit apprentice, he has to attain enlightenment before he can make a breakthrough and become a spirit warrior. Xiaohua turned to look at Yuan and spoke. "Brother Yuan, what would you like to do? Even if you keep consuming monster cores to fill your qi, once you reach the peak of the spirit apprentice realm, you will not be able to gain more qi unless you become a spirit warrior." "How do I become a spirit warrior?" he asked her. "To become a spirit warrior, you must comprehend the enlightenment that will come naturally once you reach the peak of the spirit apprentice realm. However, whether you will really gain enlightenment or not will depend on your fate and talent." "What do you mean by that?" Yuan expressed puzzlement. "Although most people are born with the capability to cultivate, their max potential is predetermined before birth. For example, while Brother Yuan may be able to reach the peak of the spirit apprentice realm with ease, you might not gain enlightenment that is required to break through to the spirit warrior realm, thus forever remaining a spirit apprentice. That being said, albeit valuable and hard to find, there are plenty of treasures out there that can help one exceed their limit and rewrite their fate." Although she did not say it, Xiaohua actually has a few of these treasures on her, so even if Yuan is destined to remain as a spirit apprentice forever, she can help him escape such a fate. Yuan looked at his qi experience as he listened to Xiaohua speak. 1,519,395 of 3,840,000. If I consume 3 more monster cores, it should be more than enough to max out the qi experience, Yuan thought to himself. Suddenly, without thinking too much about it and excited to experience this enlightenment, Yuan retrieved 3 monster cores and threw them into his mouth all at once. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 900,500 qi has been refined from the Blood Apes monster core. 895,415 qi has been refined from the Vampire Wolf's monster core. 730,650 qi has been refined from the Scaled Boar's monster core. 3,846,000 of 3,846,000. You have absorbed enough qi for a breakthrough. Because your qi experience is already full, you will not be able to receive any more qi until you reach the next realm. The notifications disappeared for a few seconds before returning. You have met the requirements for a breakthrough. You have reached first-level Spirit Warrior. Your enhanced senses has developed into advanced senses. You have learned enhanced strength, all stats plus 1,000 advanced senses. Rank, Mortal Description, sharply enhances the functions of all available senses permanently, requires no activation. Enhanced Strength. Rank, Not available. Description, greatly enhances your strength and stamina. Once Yuan has reached the Spirit Warrior realm, he could feel a large amount of profound energy expanding in this body. It made him feel as though his body had increased in size despite having no changes made to his actual body. Sacho. Xiaohua stared at Yuan with eyes as wide as 2 round eggs, her cute and round face filled with shock and disbelief. Brother Yuan. You. She couldn't believe what she'd just witnessed. Although the Spirit Warrior realm is nothing special in her eyes and could be easily disregarded, Yuan had actually managed to become a Spirit Warrior without any enlightenment. Such an achievement was unprecedented even in the higher heavens. Brother Yuan, what did you just do? She asked him in a trembling voice. But I didn't do anything. Just like before, I had enough qi for a breakthrough, and before I could even react, I had already become a Spirit Warrior. Yuan responded, sounding somewhat disappointed that he did not get to experience this enlightenment. Unbelievable. Xiaohua still couldn't believe it. Just what kind of cultivating prodigy is Yuan? Hell, calling him a prodigy is still an understatement considering what he'd just accomplished. While Xiaohua was dumbfounded by his achievements, Yuan looked at his current stats. Cultivation, first-level Spirit Warrior. Legacy, none bloodline, none physique, heaven refining. Physique physical strength, 3734, mental strength, 3975, soul strength, 4910, physical defense, 3710, mental defense, 4821, key experience, 3,846,000 of 38,460,000, 38 million. I need 38 million qi for the next level? This is ridiculous. Yuan felt slightly dizzy after seeing the long numbers and sudden spike in the qi required for the next level. I might as well eat the rest of the monster cores right now. Yuan retrieved all of his remaining monster cores and tossed it into his mouth. However, what happened next dumbfounded him greatly. Heaven Refining Physique activated. Because you have consumed a monster core that is not suitable for your cultivation base, the overall absorbed qi will be reduced by 90%. 88,000 qi has been refined from the Blood Apes monster core. 82,500 qi has been refined from the Vampire Wolf's monster core. 70,500 qi has been refined from the Scaled Boar's monster core. 85,000 qi has been refined from the vampire wolf's monster core. 65,000 qi has been refined from the hairy serpent's monster core. 66,700 qi has been refined. 54,650 qi has been refined. Qi experience. 4,500,000 of 38,460,000. Wait, what the hell? Why am I barely getting any qi from the monster cores now? Xiaohua's voice responded to his puzzlement a few moments later. Because Brother Yuan is now a spirit warrior, any monster core that is not from a spirit warrior beast will no longer be as effective. No way. But that makes no sense. Brother Yuan's existence also makes no sense. Xiaohua sighed. After calming down and thinking about it for a moment, Yuan realized that such a system was actually quite logical and fair, as it would prevent those with power that far exceeded this area's level range from taking advantage of the weak too much and force them to hunt stronger monsters. Well, this is a good time to take a break from cultivation, since I am starting to get tired of all this hunting, mentally, he thought to himself. Xiaohua, can you lead us to the nearest city? We can talk about our plans after we take a break. Xiaohua nodded and said, The nearest city is 10 kilometers away. 10 kilometers, let's run there. Having never felt this energetic before, Yuan suggested running there. Okay, Xiaohua easily agreed. Thus, the two began running towards the nearest city. After half an hour of running, Yuan and Xiaohua could finally see the city walls. You have discovered Spirit City. This place seems to be called Spirit City, said Yuan after reading the system notification. Spirit City is one of the 4 great cities within the Eastern continent, and it's ranked 3rd in terms of influence. Xiaohua quickly explained. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Yuan and Xiaohua approached the city gate. What are they doing? As they approached, Yuan noticed the crystal ball in one of the guards' grasp. It's to inspect the visitors. Unless Brother Yuan is a wanted criminal, you don't have to worry about it. Yuan nodded. A few minutes later, they reached the guards at the gates. Entrance fee is 1 silver for each individual, said the guard once they got close enough. Xiaohua, do you have any money? Yuan, who was penniless, looked at her with an awkward expression, feeling slightly embarrassed to be asking such a little girl for money. But alas, Xiaohua shook her little head. What the hell? Do you want to enter this place without money? Where did such beggars come from? The guards sneered inwardly when they realized that they were dealing with penniless people. If you have no money, then I cannot allow you inside, said one of the guards. Get out of the way already. There are people behind waiting for you. Yuan sighed and prepared to leave. However, before he could even take a step, the person standing behind him spoke. If you want, I can pay for your entrance fee. Yuan turned to look at the person who just spoke. It was a pretty young lady wearing a pair of fine robes. If you don't mind, Yuan spoke with an embarrassed face. Young lady, we shouldn't bother ourselves with these 2 beggars. The old man standing beside the young lady suddenly mumbled into her ears, unaware that his words were heard by Yuan, who has enhanced senses. However, Yuan decided to ignore the old man's disrespectful remarks. As the young lady of the Xuan family, how could I ignore people in need of help, and it's just 2 silvers? The young lady shook her head at the old man, looking disappointed by his words. Excuse me, this will account for their entrance fee too. The young lady then handed 4 pieces of silver coins to the guards. After a quick glance, the guard nodded and retrieved the crystal ball. Place your hands on it, said the guard. Yuan placed his hands on the globe. A few seconds later, it glowed a green light. You may pass. The guard then turned to Xiaohua, who also passed with a green light. A few moments later, once they have passed the inspection and entered the city, Yuan bowed to the pretty young lady. "Thank you. Although it's not much, please accept this as my gratitude." Yuan pulled out a monster core and placed it in front of the young lady, who immediately covered her mouth in surprise. "Be blood ape monster core. This is simply too much for 2 mere silvers. I cannot accept this." The young lady quickly refused. Most blood apes are around the 8th level spirit apprentice realm, and their monster cores would usually fetch at least 100 gold coins in the marketplace. If she accepted this monster swore, it would make her feel guilty for taking advantage of Yuan. "Don't worry, I have no more use for this quality of monster core, and it's only something I picked up during my travel here." Yuan understood the reason for the young lady's hesitation, but continued to urge her to accept it. The pretty young lady looked at Yuan's honest face and the shiny monster core in his hands and forcefully swallowed. "Since you insist, I will accept it." She accepted the blood ape monster core with trembling hands. Once the monster core was off his hands, Yuan said to Xiaohua, "Let's go." Wait, what's your name? I am called Xuan Wuhan." "You can call me Yuan," he responded. "Thank you, Yuan. If you need help with anything, you can find my Xuan family in Spring City." Xuan Wuhan then handed Yuan a medallion made of metal and imprinted with the word Xuan. Yuan casually accepted the medallion without thinking too much about it. "Xuan Wuhan has been added to your bond. Xuan Wuhan's bond has increased to acquaintance. Then I will see you around," he said before leaving with Xiaohua. After Yuan left, the old man beside Xuan Wuhan spoke. "Young lady, why did you give him the family medallion? That is not something strangers should hold." That young man, despite his young age, there was a formidable aura around him. He's most likely a genius cultivator from some large family. If I can be friends with him, it will benefit our Xuan family, not to mention his honest character. I like people like him. Are you sure about his background? He wasn't able to take out 2 silvers just now. The old man remained doubtful. Were you even watching just now? He handed me a blood ape monster core worth over 100 gold coins without batting an eyelid because I gave him 2 silvers. That is not something even I would do. He must be testing people on purpose. But why would he do something like that? What would he accomplish by testing others? Xuan Wuhan shook her head and spoke. "Just like my grandfather, the more profound and powerful the individual, the less sense they make. It is not something people like us can fathom." "Are you saying that the young man just now is as powerful as the ancestor who is a spirit master? That's a bit..." "Of course not. I am just saying," Xuan Wuhan said. "Anyway, let's go. We cannot miss the auction, or we will have to deal with my father's angry shouting later." Meanwhile, Yuan and Xiaohua wandered around the city aimlessly. "Xiaohua, we need to earn some money. How about we sell the monster cores we hunted on our way here? They seem quite valuable," he said. One monster core will easily sell for over 100 gold and will last us for a while, and we still have 4 of them. Then the question now is where to sell these monster cores. If you want the most money out of the monster cores, we can look for an auction house. Although it might take some time, we will get the most profit out of it. If you do not mind selling them for much cheaper, any regular store that deals with monster cores will do the job," said Xiaohua. "An auction house, huh? That sounds kind of fun. I have never been to one before, but where can we find one?" "Most big cities will hold an auction every few weeks, not to mention this spirit city, one of the 4 biggest cities on this continent. We should find one with relative ease if we ask around." Yuan nodded. "If it won't take too long, I will use the auction house to sell my monster cores. But if we have to wait a few weeks, I'd rather just sell them for cheaper." After deciding their next course of action, Yuan began asking around in hopes to find an auction house to sell his monster cores, as he did not want to experience today's humiliation any more in the future.